This episode is brought to you by Spira Capital. Founded by 2008 Ron Brown scholar Ethan Monreal Jackson, Spira Capital is your fractional C-suite. Whether you're a startup or a venture firm, a freelancer, or a family office, Spira Capital gives you the scale, support, and stability to grow. Stop worrying about stuff like bookkeeping, accounting, FP&A, operations, HR, payroll and benefits, or your international workforce. Let Spira Capital run those for you so you can run your business. To learn more, visit spiracapital.co. That's C-O. Welcome to The Value of One, The Power of All, a podcast created by the Ron Brown Scholar Program. Since 1996, this organization has been investing in the next generation of African American leaders. And this podcast highlights the stories of the people that make this program special. I'm your host, Ray Pryor, 2015 Ron Brown Scholar. And in this season, presented by the Ron Brown Venture Lab, we're highlighting founders in our alumni network who are changing the world through innovation and entrepreneurship. We'll dive into their personal upbringings and backgrounds, the origins of their ideas, and the successes and challenges they've had along the way. Today, I'm excited to share my conversation with Jadal Williams, 2017 Ron Brown Scholar and the co-founder and CEO of Vision Sense Analytics.
So how about you just start sharing with me a little bit about what company are you building and what does that company do?
Yeah, so Vision Sense Analytics, we do computer vision for animal monitoring. More specifically, we're starting off with horse tracking. We set up cameras in barns and track animal behavior. There's a abdominal pain called colic. It can kill a horse in 4 hours. So our whole mantra is, how can we detect signs of abnormal behavior? Is your horse rolling? Is it getting up and down a bunch? Is something abnormal going on? And can we alert a vet or a doctor or even the barn owner as quickly as possible to prevent the horse?
And I'm sure animal lovers among us appreciate what you're doing. But what I've also found really interesting last time we got a chance to chat was you were talking about horses, not just as a prized possession for the owners, but also a very valuable financial asset for a lot of people, particularly in the competitive circuits. How valuable is a horse to these barn owners or folks who train them? How much are we talking about you saving them by catching early signs of disease?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the value of horses. I mean, when you talk about your race horses, so that's your Kentucky Derby, your Saratoga Derby, things like that. These are millions of dollars, sometimes even in the tens of millions of dollars for a single horse. Then when you go to your other competition horses, you have dressage, you have polo, you have hunter jumper, things like that. You're seeing a $500,000 horse, $2 million horse, and even in your recreational horses can be 100K, 200K. So these are not $1,000 animals. These are hundreds of thousands in multiple cases. Very expensive.
Tell me, where did this start? Where did and I know you can share a little bit about your background and computer vision overall, but where did you land on horses and finding out how big this problem is?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So I studied computer vision and robotics at MIT, and my co-founder, he studies optimization and statistics. So we originally were doing product placement for retail. So we were wondering, how do you know where to place pants in aisle 10 versus 15 in the store? How do you know where to place mannequins? We interviewed a lot of retail stores, and we learned that a lot of stores just do educated guessing. A lot of stores have data about the customer that made a purchase, but not the one that didn't buy anything. So we had 2 deals in Boston, actually, and we set up cameras in the stores, and we were tracking people as they walk through stores and seeing what areas they look at to give information about, hey, everybody's looking at this. Maybe we should move this product or rearrange it, things like that. Then I'm sure you've seen that everything changed really end of 2023. There's glass everywhere now. You can't even get soap at Target or Walmart without asking for an employee. So all of our clients were like, can you guys do theft detection? Completely different problem. I'm not sure if vision's the best solution to solve that in every case. But at the same time, we had met this guy who owned a music store and a barn. And he was, hey, could your technology be used in my barn? We started talking, and fast forward, brought him on as the third co-founder, and here we are today.
Well, that's interesting. As much as you want to share, tell me about your decision not to pursue the theft angle, since I would assume security of a variety of sorts could be very lucrative and impactful. What made you pivot away from that and then take an interest in who ended up being your third co-founder?
It's a good question. Theft detection has been around for a long time. There's a lot of security companies. There's a lot of competitors in the space, and no one has figured it out to the best extent. So there is opportunity there, but you're also competing with ADT. You're competing with all these extremely large security companies that are trying to solve this issue. And a lot of retail stores have actually learned that one of the best solutions for deterring theft is actually the tag that you put on shirts. It's the thing that sprays ink on you if you try to take it off and things like that. They've realized that those are the best deterrent rather than having a bunch of cameras.
That makes sense. You go to Ross, so they got to take all the tags off.
Exactly.
I can
Exactly.
see that. So I can see how you, as somebody who's very minded, could see an application for what you and your co-founder know how to do in horses. But you guys don't. I mean, do you guys know much about horses? Do you guys ride? I'm also wondering, finding something cool to apply what you know on is one thing. Deciding to build an entire company around it is very, very different. So what led to the conviction of, oh, this is something we could actually do, and we could build an entire company around this issue?
Yeah, I didn't know much about horses before starting working on this, but one thing I did learn, especially coming out of Stanford for undergrad, is always talk to your customers. And so we conducted over 50 interviews before even pivoting from retail to horses. And we were interviewing barn owner after owner. We were interviewing doctors, horse vets, and we just saw a consistent trend. Colic is the number one killer of horses, affects over 900,000 horses in the United States every single year. When you lose a horse, not only did you lose your $500,000, your $1 million horse, it's also detrimental to the entire farm. All those years of training, specialization is gone. And there's a global shortage of horse vets right now. A lot of people going to school are becoming doctors for cats and dogs and not your large animals like horses. Shortage of doctors, same level of illness, ample opportunity for new technology.
What what are barn owners currently doing to try to curb it? I imagine maybe frequent vet visits and things like that, but certainly nothing like what y'all can offer. What were your customers doing to try to make do with this pretty, it sounds like, tough macro climate as it relates to horses, as well as folks who can take care of them?
So very surprising. A lot of facilities are very traditional. So some might not have anybody. So you close your barn around 7 p.m. and then you come back at 6 in the morning and hope everything's okay. Now, there's other facilities, the more upper scale ones, they usually have what's called night check. So somebody will go by every 2 hours, but it's very manual, still pen and paper. So people are manually walking down. Does the horse look okay? Yes or no? And then if something's wrong, then they send an alert. Well, you're missing a lot of information, obviously, and you're not tracking trends over time. By setting up a camera, we can get granular analytics. We can understand what's happening on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and et cetera.
And this might be a naive question for the non-technical among us, but are you able to use the insights that you pull from all of the horses that you might track inform the algorithm that then makes it easier to spot issues in other horses? Like, it's not just that you're seeing what a great Tuesday after hard practice looks like for this horse. You just got way more visibility than maybe even a vet does. If you think about when y'all are everywhere and being used by a bunch of barn owners, you will get more visibility into horse behavior than even maybe an entire vet's career, just because they're one person and they can only see so many. Uh, is that been the case, or is that plan? Is that all of that will inform making spotting anything that's wrong even faster and quicker over time?
Exactly. There's a saying that's been going around lately that data is the new oil, and it's that exact same process. If we can collect data from all of these different horses and different barns and different facilities, we're picking up so many analytics that we can find trends that an individual wouldn't be able to process themselves.
This is the nature of what you do, and a lot of different applications of computer vision. Did you discover anything unique or challenging with horses that's different than theft, for example, or retail? Or and I know you've been doing some work with the NBA as well. Have you found anything that's unique with this that's technically different than any of the other applications?
I would say environment. Barns are in rural areas. You're 2 hours outside of a major city. That means sometimes the power disconnects, power cycles. So we lost internet. How do you keep track? How do you portray all your analytics? Or maybe we lost power. So now our computer shuts down and then reboots. So do we need to set up a backup generator? how do we make sure that if things are going to get uploaded to the cloud, it will get processed and uploaded later. Also, there's low latency. It's very hard to have a lot of Wi-Fi. Sometimes facilities have Starlink. Sometimes they're using almost like a hotspot. So how do you make sure you don't overload the system? So a lot of things are dealing with rural areas that you, most cases, won't have to deal with retail, because the store has to have internet, has to have Wi-Fi, the lights have to stay on. They already have these things in place.
And to that, and the differences in environment, I would imagine that even though you are, tackling what might seem like a very niche problem, I would assume that there is a wide spectrum of horse owners. You know, the person who is, maybe 45 minutes out of a major city who just has some land and has a horse,
Right.
one, maybe along with other animals. And then there's folks who are training and might have multiple, or might, have a lot more infrastructure set up. How have you found serving or exploring or talking to the different types of horse owners, and they might need fundamentally different things, I would imagine, or might see things very differently. What have you found in that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our target market is competition horse owners because of that exact reason. So we're looking at high-end dressage, polo, racing, eventing, things like that, because these high-end facilities are going to have usually more infrastructure. You're also going to have more horses. We're in a barn right now that has 34 stalls. So it's more efficient and more optimal for us to set up in a larger facility than for us to set up in a tiny backyard barn with 1 or 2 horses at this stage.
So the technology is one piece, and then I would imagine selling to horse owners is a whole nother challenge, and it's certainly one that is essential for the success of your company. And I don't know if there's any horse owner who would disagree with the value that you're offering. What has the experience been like engaging in this market, talking to horse owners, seeing what are their buying habits, what do they care about? Particularly for y'all who gets, with the exception of your third co-founder, I'm sure he's a big part of this. You guys not having known a whole lot about horses before then, what's that experience been like, jumping into a new space where I would imagine a lot of these people have been doing this their whole lives. All they know is horses, and this is their entire lifestyle. They take it very seriously. What's that experience been like for you?
It's definitely a very legacy market and very old school. So a lot of relationships. So for example, we don't really email a lot. People prefer calls. So it's calling the facility, or it's even just showing up. So a lot of in-person visits, a lot of phone calls, and explaining the vision. We don't want to overwhelm them with too much technology, but saying, hey, this can help you with your practice and help keep your horses healthy and alive.
I would imagine somebody like yourself, Stanford undergrad, now getting a doctoral degree from MIT. A lot of the ways of growing a startup that's tech or tech enabled that you might learn about or hear about are probably very different than the on the ground things that you actually have to do to sell to your customer. There might not be an email list you can hit up and wait for conversions and clicks, and you might need to do a bit more guerrilla marketing of calling folks. And do you also go to races now and go to the events where a lot of those people are?
I need to. I have not been to any yet, but it's on my list to eventually make it out to the Kentucky Derby. But we've been going to conferences, so a lot of horse conferences. There's a big one here in Massachusetts called Equine Affair. We've gone to that 2 years now. We also went to one in Florida as well.
I would imagine there are horses everywhere, but there are particular regions of the country. I would imagine Kentucky being an obvious one, where you're finding there's a concentration of a lot of your ideal customers.
Ocala, Florida is the horse capital of the world. And so we're trying to establish a presence there. There's also Wellington, Florida, which is another city fairly nearby. And then there's Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, to be exact. That's where the Kentucky Derby is. There's also a decent large presence in Texas and in California as well.
So tell me a little bit about the first time that you saw it work for a horse, or the first time you guys were tracking the analytics and felt successful with that. Who was that? What was that experience like? And what did you take away from that first experience that has led y'all to continue wanting to build this?
That's a great question. With our first paying customer, started off as just a design partner, and Iron Horse Dressage is a dressage facility here in Massachusetts. And one of the first things we noticed is that one of the horses was not sleeping as much as the other one. And so we were wondering what's going on. We started looking around at the stall and we saw that there was an external light. So almost imagine a lamppost that was always on, bringing light into the barn. And once that light was turned off, we saw the sleeping increased. Now, this was a very simple example, but it just shows that something that you might not have regularly noticed unless you were literally just sitting there every single day watching the horse 24/7 and then realizing, hey, something is slightly off.
I would imagine that computer vision could easily pick up something like that, but it may not have been looking for something like that if you didn't know in advance. Have you found yourself needing to see things physically in person and then going back and changing algorithm often rather than just running through the video itself and trying to pull insights from whatever you find from the raw footage?
Exactly. It's all about the human in the loop. And so it's really understanding what does our algorithm see? What do the horse trainers see? What do the horse owners think? And then what do we see when we physically go into the facility and look at the barn? So a combination of those three factors let us know, hey, we think it could be this. Let's A/B test and see the results afterwards.
It seems to me that even more than most technology products, y'all are really a partner with the barn owner because you can't just flip the switch of having your sensors on and assume that everything is going to be fine. It really is a team effort to get both the on the ground as well as the tech component right to make sure that everything's checked. I know you've been doing some interesting stuff on the sports side too. Can you tell a little bit about what you've been working on with basketball and what, if anything, you've been learning from those projects that has informed what you're building with your company too?
Yeah. So at MIT, I studied computer vision and robotics. My master's thesis was computer vision for construction automation. So how can you automate building excavators and tractors in factories? So imagine setting up a camera in a factory and learning how you can better align parts for assembly. And now for my PhD thesis, I'm working on computer vision for automated officiating in basketball. So um, all of these are understanding how can you use cameras to analyze a situation and then perform some sort of analysis. And that even expands to us. Like I mentioned earlier, we're just starting with horses. Horses are our flagship product, but we really see this expanding beyond that. Going to livestock is a natural next step. So looking at cattle and chicken, and then household pets. What's your cat or dog doing when nobody's around?
Basketball is exciting for you. You also spend some time looking at construction. Horses with stall guardian certainly is interesting. Where did your interest in computer vision start? Because it sounds like you found an area that can touch so many different areas of life and so many different industries. Where did just an interest in this particular type of technology?
I've always been interested in hardware and software, and so that really drew me to study robotics. And then when you think about robotics, cameras, computer vision, those are the eyes of the robot. How does the robot see the world around it? As example is always autonomous vehicles. How does the car see if there's a person nearby, if there's an obstacle, if there's another car? That's all computer vision and camera analysis. So my whole thing was I want to understand how robots see the world and understand how to interact with these systems. As technology is getting better, as cameras are getting cheaper and more advanced, as computers are getting smaller and more powerful.
My hunch is that you're building the software, the algorithm that can watch and tell you certain insights or send the alerts. Are you guys also building the actual cameras, or do you partner with a different company to do that? Or have you seen interesting innovations on the hardware side too that make it possible for you guys to do what you do, or possible to do anything else that's exciting too?
Our goal is to be a software company. So we want to focus on just the analytics. However, at this stage, we do have to install cameras. We're not building cameras, but we, partner, buy off the shelf and use those. But there's a world where we partner with a large camera company in the future and they can do the installation and we can focus on the analytics and the insights. If a facility already has cameras, then our ideal goal is to say, are those compatible with our system? If yes, then they can just use our software. And that's the ideal scenario.
Yeah. How often is that? I don't know what quality cameras most landowners have, but I would imagine they've got to be decent, at least with the ideal folks that have high-end horses that you're at least thinking about. Have you found that compatibility is easy, or have you found that you're having to buy and install a lot more cameras than you might have originally thought?
We're having to buy and install a lot more. I mean, some facilities do have cameras, but then they're not in the stall, so they can't see the full range of the horse and what's it's doing. Maybe they can only capture part of the activity. So to capture the full range, sometimes it's just the positioning of the camera as well.
Yeah, okay. You talked a little bit about a customer that you have that went from using it in 2 stalls that expanded it to 6. Is that part of your growth strategy that you're gonna uh, chat with the barn owner about just testing it out with 1 or 2, and then hope that that proves out how they need to protect their entire stock of horses?
Yeah, there's two main distribution channels. One is that land and expand. As you mentioned, it's really, can we get into a facility, test out the technology for a few stalls, prove the feasibility, and then expand from there. And that really helps build rapport and relationship with the facility. And then the second is actually the vet route. So a lot of horse owners put a lot of trust into their vets, as they should. And vets have the credibility, the knowledge, the rapport. They understand the situation. So if we can help partner and sell the vets, then they can sell to all their clients. Now, one vet might serve 30 different barns. And so if we can get vets on board, then we can have access to a whole lot of facilities. And we have a vet on our advisor as well.
I could see them being the really crucial pillar because at the end of the day, the alert for something like colic that you want to catch early, not that the barn owner probably wants to know, but not sure exactly what he's going to do about it. If something this deadly, the vet is really the one that needs to know somewhat immediately about it. And certainly, like you said, that they can connect you to or introduce you to multiple. Are you thinking that you're going to continue to go directly to barn owners, or would you sell this to vets who then white label or sell this as part of their service to their own clients?
Exactly. That's one of our options. We're exploring both right now, but we think there's opportunities in the vet angle. Also, when a horse is sick, usually the larger hospitals will have horses stay overnight. So those facilities need cameras as well, and they definitely need, more routine maintenance and check-ins. You want to make sure that the horse that just undergo colic surgery is okay, and so you're always checking in on it. They're regularly having night check around the clock, making sure that all their horses are okay and nothing's wrong. So there's also opportunities there to help add more granular analytics to their existing process.
So, you're talking a little bit about the overall market of painted this great picture of, you said almost 1,900,000 horses a year,
Yeah,
uh,
900,000 a year in the United States.
just in the United States. We'll talk about that. What else could exist in a second. And then you've got this shortage of vets. And I can see maybe some reasons why more folks want to take care of dogs and cats, maybe just because they have them or grew up around them. Less people probably had horses growing up. But what are you seeing in the just market overall that's changed, or where do you is there anything developing or new in this horse space that might either be a tailwind or a headwind for y'all as you continue building around this?
I mean, I think it's not just in the equine industry. I think you've seen it in other markets as well, where even in manufacturing, there's concerns that a lot of the skilled workers are becoming aged out and a lot of the younger people are not going into the same profession. So it's just a similar thing that we're seeing in the horse space where younger people are not studying large animals as much as they were 30 years ago. And so therefore there's become a gap. But again, your horse is $500,000 in multiple cases. So
Yeah.
that care is essential and needed.
Yeah, can see that. Independent of whether your son, daughter, or the next generation of folks will want to take up, you know, taking care of horses, it's something you got to do now. And if you've got roughly 1 million of these several $1 million assets, if we were talking about any other asset, we would certainly do something to protect it or to watch it and maintain it and make sure that it's in a good spot. What are y'all's plans for the remainder of the year in terms of your focus area, or whether it's finding algorithm or continuing to double down on the barns that you're in and expand to new markets? What's kind of what are you guys focused on right now?
Yeah, our goal going into the summer is to further refine our algorithm, make sure that we can detect different activities and just keep iterating. And we're hoping to expand more of our existing pilot and then bring on more customers. So another interesting thing about the horse world is just making sure that we have the data. So getting enough examples of different activities and making sure that our model can perform as best as possible.
On the personal side, got a few things that you're juggling all at once. You've got Saw Guardian, and you've got your work with the NBA, and then you just got being in a PhD program at MIT, and you've got life generally. How are you balancing everything that's catching your eye today?
Yeah, I mean, I make a good schedule and just focus. I think that each area is exciting to me, and I just allocate the time to execute and learn as much as I can. I think the time is now to make a difference, and so I'm trying to allocate my resources in different areas.
In the spirit of that, I'm going to ask you one last question that I've been asking every founder that I've talked to on this series, all of whom who are Ron Brown scholars and captains who are extremely bright, driven, and could apply their time and talents to a lot of different things, and similar to you, but have chosen to lock in on building a company, a particular space for a particular reason. So I'm wondering for you, why of all the things you could be doing with your time or with your degrees or with your experience, have you chosen to focus on saving horses, at least for right now?
That's a great question. I see myself as a technologist. How can I apply computer vision to different verticals? I mentioned I did my master's in construction, now looking into sports on the school side. And then on the business side, we started with retail and now we're focusing on horses. So I think for me, it's how can I apply a novel technology to a specific market and make a difference? We have the opportunity to save lives here and have a substantial impact on the horse industry as a whole. And then when you look at the bigger picture, we get this working with horses, and now let's expand to livestock. And if there's chickens or cattle that are sick, we want to let people know as soon as possible so that your food down the food chain doesn't go bad. Or even, as I mentioned, household pets, and there's a plethora of other applications as well.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Value of One, the Power of All, a podcast created by the Ron Brown Scholar Program, presented by the Ron Brown Venture Lab, and sponsored by Spira Capital. If you want to hear more inspiring conversations like this one, don't forget to click subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And to learn more about the organization, check us out at ronbrown.org.